My name is Kylie Christel and I'm an occupational therapist and I'm here to talk to you about the OT role with your condition. A little bit of my background. I went to the University of Sydney and I've worked in public hospitals here in Sydney. I've worked in rehab hospitals, community rehab teams and palliative care services, both here and in the UK. And in 2006, I started my own private practice. And when Professor Dominic Rose started his neurology practice at Macquarie University Hospital, he invited me to be his consultant OT at his multidisciplinary clinic that he runs there twice a month. So that's a little bit about me. So today I'll talk about what OTs do. We'll have a little bit of a look at some of the equipment and some of the home mods that people may be interested in. And the last thing I'll do is a client of mine has very kindly allowed me to share some photos. So we're going to have a little walk through of her home so you can see what she's got. And then there'll be time for questions at the end. So I've got my timer going so I won't run late, hopefully. Okay. Okay, so an occupational therapist is interested in the things that we do. It's all about doing, and it's a bit of a silly name, but the occupation are the tasks that we do. So that might be how we eat, it might be how we use our computer or drive, it might be what we do at work. So it's really any of those practical things. And what we study about is how the body works, how our brain works, and then how we interact with our environment. And that's why the occupational therapists are always interested in the equipment and that assistive equipment, and then possibly your home modifications and your ramps and level access showers and things like that. So that's how I describe it. This is a picture of a gentleman I've been working with for a number of years. His name is Petrus, and I asked him how would he describe my role as the occupational therapist. So he said, MND is a rapidly progressing and debilitating disease. It's therefore essential that you have access to an expert and specialist occupational therapist. As a lay patient, you're simply not aware of the diverse range of equipment that can make your life more manageable and comfortable. For example, a customised wheelchair, the correct wheelchair cushion, a specialised mattress, recommendations on bathroom equipment and modifications, etc. Your occupational therapist should have knowledge of the available equipment and may bring you a range of items so that you can trial it and together work out what's best. And finally, it's imperative that you have a knowledgeable and passionate, and when needs be forceful, advocate who can guide you through the often labyrinthine NDIS process. So not everybody's on the NDIS, but your OT is there to assist you with any of those funding bodies. So. Okay, so to talk a little bit about equipment, it's sometimes referred to as assistive technology, sometimes adaptive equipment. I've just popped a couple of little photos in of some very popular and very common items. Sometimes that equipment can be really simple. So that is a picture of a handy bar, which just goes in the side of the car and it gives you something solid to lean on when you're trying to get in and out. Now I actually have one here that someone gave me the other day that they're happy to give away. So if someone wants it, either come and ask me or I might give it to you, Christine, at the end of the day, and you can take that with you. This is called a Ring doorbell, and so it's about $130 from JB Hi-Fi, and you put that at your front door and it links up to your smartphone, and it means when you're sitting in the back of the house and someone presses your doorbell, you can see them and you can speak to them. So if it's a delivery person, you might say just leave that at the front door, or if it's someone you know, you might say come round the back's open. Really quite simple device. And with all of these things, it's very individual. What someone thinks is the best thing ever, someone else is not in the least bit interested in or doesn't need it. So quite a range. And this is a picture of no tie shoelaces. So this gentleman had difficulty doing a bow in his shoelace. So this particular brand has a toggle and you pull the toggle tight. But even if you Google no tie shoelaces, there's also some elastic type ones as well. So people can just shove their foot into the shoe without having to redo laces. So sometimes some little devices like that can make the start of the day a little bit easier. That is a shower chair. It's adjustable in height. It's a shower stool, so sometimes a smaller seat will suit people better if you've got good trunk control and you can sit there quite safely. And this one is a tilting shower commode. And this particular gentleman is extremely tall, so we actually had this custom made for him. People often ask me about getting on and off the toilet. If the toilet's a little bit higher, or sometimes people can push up or pull up with their arms, this razor just pops onto the toilet and gives you a bit of height and a set of arms. This is an over toilet aid. It's just, again, pops over your toilet. It's got the legs, so as long as you can negotiate the legs, you can set it to whatever height you want. And this is a set of thrown arms. So these, again, just attach to the toilet bowl. But the idea is that you can see that there's thousands and thousands of different products. So it just depends on what you like, what you need, what your body's doing, who else is using the toilet, and all those types of things. And that's all the part of the discussions you'll have with your OT. Okay, so this is a shower chair on wheels. It can also go over the toilet. This is a bidet. So this toilet has had a bidet fitted to it. Very popular with anyone that's lived in Asia for a while. But the idea is that you press a button, it sprays warm water, and then it blows nice warm air. So it's great. I've used one, it's great. And this is a different brand of tilting shower commode. So again, sometimes a different brand might suit someone better for whatever reason. So. Okay. People ask me often, they're having a little bit of trouble if their legs are a bit weak about moving from sitting into standing. So sometimes that might be changing the height of what you're moving from. So that might be your lounge chair or your bed. And those little razors just pop under the legs to make it that little bit higher, and sometimes that's all that's required. That's a bed rail. That is one of my favourite pieces of equipment because it just slides under the mattress and it gives people something to hang on to, which can sometimes help you with your turning, your repositioning, pulling into sitting from lying, and then standing up. This, again, they come in all different sorts of shapes, but can be really, really handy device. And this is what we call a handling belt. So it actually goes around the body, and the great thing about it is it has those little handles, and what it allows is if you need a little bit of support or guidance, that your helper can hold onto the handles, which is so much better than hanging on to the back of trousers, particularly if you're helping a man. They much prefer the belt. It tends to be a bit nicer. So this device gives a bit of extra support, so the person can put their feet on it and put their hands on it and pull up into standing, and then the device is on wheels, so it can be turned and then you can sit down wherever you're moving to. So sometimes people, you talked about fatigue a little bit earlier on, is that people might transfer really well across the course of an entire day, but the last transfer at night is into bed and you're knackered. So often people might need something for a little bit of extra support, even just for that last transfer of the day. So this is a device that gives a little bit extra support because it's very similar to the last one, except it's got the strap behind your back and a battery and a button. So your helper can press the button and it helps pull you up into standing. And then again, I get asked often by people when my legs don't work, and again, this doesn't happen to everyone, but how do I move from bed to chair, or how do I get about? And so this device is a hoist, and the sling goes around your body, gets hooked up, lifts you up, you move and you go down. Now, often people see these types of equipment in the hospitals. Now, in the hospital, they have to buy equipment that is going to suit everybody. That includes probably a weight limit of about 300 kilos. So I can't see anyone here that's 300 kilos. So you're not going to require the massive bit of equipment that you've seen in the hospital, the staff using. Often what we have at home is built to be used in the home and to be used by one person, and it's a lot friendlier than some of the things people see in the hospital, which is good. Okay, mobility. This little scooter I get asked about quite often. Scooters can be fabulous because you can save energy and get about perhaps somewhere where you might not be able to walk that distance. This scooter folds up very neatly, and there's other brands that fold up into a looks like a suitcase, and everyone thinks that's fantastic, but that scooter weighs 27.3 kilos. So it is not a practical weight to lift. Some people can manage that, but most of us can't. It's also got the little skinny wheels at the front, which is not really stable. Whereas there's other products on the market. This is also a folding scooter, so it doesn't look as neat, but it doesn't fold up as neatly, but it comes apart. So it comes apart into 7 different pieces, and that's more likely going to be something that someone's going to manage to pull apart and get into a vehicle to use. But there's a huge range. And then powered mobility. So when your legs can't get you where you want to go, as a well person, I jump in my car and I drive places, and so sometimes people need something that's going to get them around their house as well. So powered mobility might look like this, or it might look like this, or it might look like this, or it might look like this. So this is Gil, who is very kindly going to let us do the little visual walkthrough of her house later on, but she's looking particularly happy, as she referred to it as a big cheesy grin in that photo, because she's got her new bulldozer leg cover because it was quite cold where she was, and so she was quite happy when that arrived, and she sent me that on the phone. So. Okay. Oh, that is not Gil in Gil's wheelchair. Okay. So you probably all remember the movie Twins, and I put that up there just to remind you that one piece of equipment does not fit everybody. So because we are all different shapes and sizes, and also what we want to do and where we want to go is all completely different, that it's really important to have that discussion with your OT and make sure that they're listening to you about what's important to you, what's working for you, what's not working for you. And keep going through that. And sometimes that is also when things are changing as well. I was working with a lady a couple of years ago, quite an elderly lady, and she had dementia. And so whenever there was a problem, her daughters would call and I would go in and work with them. We might need to change our system because she had changed, and what we had put in place for her to support her at home needed to be changed. And so one day when her daughter phoned me and said Mum had passed away, and she said, "Oh, thank you very much for your help." But she said, "I'm sorry, we were always so stressed when you came." And I said, "But that's because you've done exactly the right thing. So you need to talk to your OT when things aren't going right. And when there's a blip in the system, something needs to be changed, that's when you need to get your OT on the phone and make sure you're talking to them and looking at what needs to be done now." So. Okay, so comfort and pressure relief. So probably you've all got a bit of a sore bottom after sitting here all day. But the OTs are very interested in your comfort and your pressure relief. So there's actually, this might surprise you, but a couple of good things about having motor neuron disease. And one of them is that with the motor neuron disease, that your muscles that move your body don't work well, but the system that registers your sensation remains intact. So your body's still going to tell you, if your bottom is sore, it's telling you it's not getting enough oxygen to those muscles and things. And so OTs, we're a very strange breed of people. We really, really want to know if your bottom is sore or your heels are sore or anything like that, because something can be done about it. And again, there's a massive range of different pressure relieving products that might be quite simple and again, might be quite complex. And that's often what you're sitting on, might be what you're lying on. That scripted commode I showed you earlier had a purple seat, and that's a special pressure relieving seat, so it's super comfy to sit on. But you really need to listen to your body when it's giving you that message so that you can be comfortable. So one of the things some of us do is we like to access our computers and we like to access our phones, and if our hands aren't working as well as they used to, perhaps how we used to do that isn't going to work for us so well anymore. And I know that you had a talk earlier by the speech pathologist, so sometimes you'll have your OT and your speech pathologist working together on these computer access and alternate systems. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, but this lady here, that little device on her glasses is a Quoha. It's a gyroscopic mouse, which is instead of the mouse we use here on our desk, the mouse is here on her head, and she just needs to move her head and you can hold and click and completely operate her computer like that. So it's actually a really simple device, but it can be really quite effective. This is an IntelliGaze eye gaze system that I guess you probably had a little look at this morning, possibly. This is a Neurone system, so that little device on the forearm there, even when the signals we send down to try and move our muscles don't work, they can still be registered. So this system uses those muscles to operate your computer system. And there's a lot of standard products out and about in the community that people have that also can be fantastic. So this is a Google Home. So aside from settling disputes in the family, because you can ask Google, hey Google, who won the Melbourne Cup last year, or things like that, you can set them up so you can say, hey Google, turn my lights on, or hey Google, can you change the channel on the TV, and things like that. So one of the great places to get a bit of information is, it's a website and an organisation called Assistive Technology Australia. It's also known as, it used to be called the Independent Living Centre, and they've changed their name to Assistive Technology Australia, but they don't sell any equipment, but they are staffed by OTs and speech pathologists. There's a great website that has information on equipment. It does have a showroom out in Blacktown, but most people don't go out there. You can if you like. If you wanted to, make sure you ring up and book an appointment, because they'll allocate a staff member to be with you and then come around and show you some of the products. Funding. So there's lots of different places where people can get funding for these equipment, all this equipment, and that's your OT should also be helping you with that. And it does depend on your age and where you live and things like that. And of course, one of the other great things with having motor neuron disease is the Motor Neuron Disease Association, and aside from days like today, they of course have their lone pool of equipment. So that is a great resource of equipment, and they don't charge for you to access that. They like the OT to make the request and to set up the equipment and that type of thing, but that's another great resource. So. Your OTs will also be interested in how you get about, how you get in and out of the car, how you might transport your powered wheelchair. If you're driving, you might need to be talking to your doctor about that and just checking that they're happy with that and that you've got clearance to keep driving. Most people know themselves when they're not safe, and it's really making sure you're safe if a kid or something runs out in front of you, isn't it? That you've got the power to stamp on that brake or do whatever's needed. But talk to your doctor about that one. Okay. So the OTs also look at then your home modifications. And again, sometimes those things are really simple, can make quite a difference. So this is just a picture of a little aluminium wedge. And what it has done is giving you a smooth transition between the hallway and the bathroom there. Now, anyone that's using a four-wheeled walker, being able to sort of roll in without having to lift your walker, again, it's just really nice. It makes it a lot easier and you're a lot less likely to catch your toe or trip. Simple grab rails. Or you might need something that's a little bit more complicated, so maybe a bathroom modification and a hobless shower. So There are a couple of my favourite sinks where you can get your knees in under the sink and get a little bit closer. And there's an accessible shower of one of my clients I took recently. So your bathrooms can really look really nice as well. They don't have to look like, again, like something you may have seen in the hospital or a public toilet or something, you know. Yeah. So the occupational therapist's role, you know, we can all read the Australian standards and we can read the Building Code of Australia, but your occupational therapist is going to take the knowledge of you and your condition and what might be in your future to help you work out what's going to work in your home. So that's where your OT is going to help you out there, so that you don't end up with that. So. You know, and your OT will make sure that your toilet fits your shower commode and things like that. It's common mistakes that happen. Okay, energy conservation. So your OTs then, because we're looking at those practical things we do, I'm going to talk to you about some shortcuts and ways to save energy. You may have heard the analogy of you might start the day with a jar of marbles full of energy, and if you power through that quite quickly, well then you've got nothing left and then you cactus for the rest of the day. But if you can go a little bit more slowly and use those marbles on the important things, then you're going to get more enjoyment out of your day. So a very common example is even though someone can stand to shower, I'll often say, well, would you consider sitting, because you'll save energy and then you'll be less tired after your shower and have more time, more energy to go out and things like that. Which links into, I think someone asked a question when you're talking about being really fatigued when you're eating. So sometimes if you can save energy doing chores, essentially, showering and dressing is a chore, that you might find that you can enjoy your meals a little bit more because you're just not quite so tired. So Gil, that you saw the picture of sitting in the powered wheelchair before, she actually still can walk. She loves her wheelchair. So one of the things she said to me when she got her wheelchair, she said, instead of flaking on the sofa, I've energy to help with the homework and not lose the plot at bedtime, and I can chat to my husband when he gets home from work rather than being monosyllabic. So she just loves her chair. So, okay. And there's Gil. So Gil lives with her husband and her 2 primary school age boys, and her boys call it our magical house. So sometimes it's really important to keep in mind sometimes how we might view something is not necessarily how other people might view something. So it's her magical house. And she also said to me that when the day that we provided the chair, she normally goes down to the bus and meets the boys when they come off the bus from school. And she said, the look on Art's face when the bus pulled up, I could have been sitting in a Ferrari. Priceless. So this is Gil's house. And so we've had the ramp installed. And so again, these modifications can look like part of your house. They can really integrate well. She has the automatic door opener. She's at home quite a bit on her own during the day, so her legs are stronger than her hands, so the ability to be able to let people in and out and be able to get herself in and out is, of course, really important. She has an eye gaze system, and so sitting next to that is the automatic door opener. So if she's sitting there in the kitchen working away and someone comes to the door, she can open that without having to get herself all the way to the door. And things like that, saving a little bit of energy, making her a little bit more efficient. Here she's making a cup of tea. This is a Ucello kettle, and it has a little rocker in the base, so you don't have to lift the kettle and you just tilt it. And you can also get them in black and white. They're a really snazzy bit of equipment. And if it was sitting up there, yeah, no one would know. This is her alarm system. So again, because she's at home alone, she wears a pendant alarm, and it happens to be one of those back to base ones where it will go to the call centre. But there's quite a range out these days. So even though she's not 95, she still wears her pendant alarm because that stops her husband worrying and the rest of her family worrying, and she knows that if anything goes wrong, she can call someone. This is her bathroom. So she has the level access shower or the hobbler shower. It's quite fashionable these days to have the shower screen and the one open side. You'll see that on the block if you've been watching that on the TV. So again, they can look quite nice. And there's her toilet with the bidet on it, and again, you wouldn't even be able to see that probably without me mentioning it. This is her bed, and so you might wonder why I've put that photo there, but that is actually 2 single beds together. Her side has the high-low function, the backrest function, and she's got the pressure-relieving mattress on her bed. So just looks really nice. And that's just a picture of her lounge room and really her power chair sitting up there. But that's just really part of her house and how things roll these days. So on the first weekend that Gil received her power chair again, she sent me a message. We took a taxi to school for bonfire night, loved my wheels in the paddock and went up to launch the kite. Thanks again, felt involved again rather than a spectator, which is really important. I think so. There you go. So that's it. I'm open for questions.
Thanks, Kylie. I think everybody's going to want to live in a magical house now.
Oh, they should. They might already.
Absolutely. So if you do have any questions, I think you know the drill. Pop up your hand and Kylie will repeat your question just for the purpose of filming. Any questions? That lunch must have really slowed you down. It does, doesn't it? And it also means that you must have answered everything.
It could not possibly answer everything, but...
Well, I don't think so, but I think there's... I must say,
it's a good idea.
It's the first time I've ever seen a modified bathroom that was the envy of all of us at the back of the house. A few of us did say, I wish my bathroom looked that good. Yeah. So I think it is really wonderful to realise that we can make these changes, sometimes ahead of time, before they're needed. I think you'd find most people that work at the MND Association, when they get to a certain age, as I did when I bought a house a couple of years ago, a new house, I was planning for the future. I'm planning for my infirmity. So, you know, it's to that level access and that kind of ability to access things. Oh, hand up. Alice, I'll bring you the mic.
Thank you. Well, if Kylie can hear me.
Yep.
We'll make sure everybody can.
Peter loves to read in newspaper. Are there any devices or frames that could be put on a dining table that would enable him to read the paper and turn the pages?
Yeah,
is that what you heard?
Yeah. So I'll just repeat the question. The question is, turning the pages on the newspaper is quite difficult, and are there any alternatives there? Some people can manage to read on a device. So if you can touch a screen, a tablet, iPad or something, some people can actually touch the screen. Depending on, you can also get the newspaper on the internet. You can use a switch that might activate your tablet if you're not able to swipe, and it can roll it along. So the switch you can tap with anywhere. I can see you shaking your head.
Sorry, I'm speaking to Peter. He likes the paper.
The
rail paper.
The rail paper. There's nothing that'll help. Nothing that'll help with that real paper, but you can read the same words from a different place. Now maybe she could give you a newspaper to hold while you're swiping on your...
Well, you know, I'm going to say here that the Sydney Morning Herald, you can even push it out of the app. So it looks like the real paper. It's laid out the same. Oh, sorry, Sydney Morning Herald is not his brand.
Oh. Oops. There is, I mean, the MND Association actually have book turners, which is if you have a book and it literally will turn the page for you, but not for a newspaper, unfortunately. So.
We have the solution for almost everything.
But it is doing it a little differently.
Hi, we're weighing up options for future use of a vehicle. Advice has been just use taxis, but sometimes you don't have that flexibility or you want a bit more spontaneity.
Yep.
So looking in about vehicles. On the other hand, as a carer, I've had a spinal fusion, so I've got to be wary of lifting and bending and things. In vehicles that are for people in wheelchairs, the ones where motorised wheelchairs can go, do any of them have things fitted so you don't have to climb up and bend to clamp in the wheelchairs and things?
Yes.
They do.
So I'll just repeat the question. It was about if you wanted to transport a power chair in perhaps your own vehicle, do they all have to be strapped down, which is quite physically demanding because you've got to squeeze in a little space to strap down a chair the way they would in a taxi? Are there alternatives? So there is a thing called a docking station, and a piece gets put into the vehicle and then the piece gets put onto the bottom of your wheelchair, and when the wheelchair drives in, it'll actually lock into place. So there's no manual handling at all, by no tying down. The NDIS won't pay for that. They will only pay for tie downs fairly much. I mean, nothing is set with the NDIS, but in general. And the plate has to go onto the bottom of your wheelchair, so you need to have your own wheelchair. You couldn't screw that onto a chair that say for instance the association had provided you. And also that docking station underneath your chair brings the base of your chair down a couple of centimetres. So again, it's what chair you've got and where you're going to go, whether that's an issue. So some people who like to go quite off-road, that lowering of the main bit of the chair can be a problem. Often the other issue then is the time frame to get all of these things organised. So if you went out tomorrow and purchased a vehicle and you had your power chair, you could possibly do that. Again, it's just checking your entry height, and then it will all marry up and work together.
Often there's second-hand cars that we learn of as well, and there is actually a website, I believe, to get disability vehicles.
Yeah, even in cars.com there's lots of vehicles. So because again, if the NDIS process, they will, for some people in some instances, fund a modification to a car, but still that whole process of just getting all those reports approved and all that type of thing takes such a long time, and you still need a car that's only a couple of years old for them to agree to that. It actually can be a lot less stress and actually cheaper to just go out and purchase a chair that's already modified. It's really important to have your chair first so that you can check that it's going to work with the car too.
So would you recommend have a chat to their own occupational therapist?
Have a chat to your occupational therapist, yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Or your clinic therapist.
Or your clinic
So anyone that goes to an MND clinic.
You've missed that part of the day. We've been talking a lot about the benefits of this multidisciplinary care today and clinics. And if you're not sure if there's one in your area, have a chat with us and we can let you know what might be the most accessible or the best fit for you. Are there any other questions before we thank Kylie? Chat.
This is just for the future, that I might be depending on the wheelchair, but what I found now is that the person who will have to help me will be my wife again, that have to lift the equipment and put in the boot.
Yep.
And we can't see that it's going to be practical.
Yep.
So is there any help with that?
So you can, I mean, there are hoists that will lift something from the ground and put it into the boot. But sometimes it depends on how quickly you're changing, and therefore how long you're going to be using that product for. So for some people it's worth doing that and paying for that type of thing to have something to get into the car. But for other people, it's let's just skip that step because it's not really going to work for very long anyway, and then you're still going to need to be looking at something different. And so, I mean, I'm obviously a huge fan of the powered wheelchairs because they're such a great bit of kit. So if you're really struggling to get anything, and sometimes it could be just a simple walking frame or transit wheelchair in and out of the car, then you look at something else where there's no lifting involved. And so that's when it could be quite a basic wheelchair, but something that you can ride in a taxi as a start. So it's either a hoist to help with that, somebody else to help with that, or looking at taxis or other transport. You can hire accessible vehicles as well too. Yeah.
Can be fitted into the car?
Well, it depends on your car. So yes, but it depends on your car. And so yes, it depends on your car, and it depends on what product you're using, and then it might be what product you might be using next as well. You'd be wanting to think about all those things. And the other thing is, of course, if the hoist is being used to get the wheelchair or whatever into the car, how are you getting in and out of the car, and how great is that? Because sometimes that's also not going so well, not easy, and so sometimes because we can't lift something also then helps us make that change that keeps you safe without having difficulties getting in and out. But they'd really need to have a look at, there's a whole lot of things to be thinking about. Yeah.